Serious, what is a seemingly harmless parenting mistake that will majorly frick up a child later in life? Hi Reddit guys, subscribe now, or I will shoot a football through your window. Don't smother your kids. My mum quit having her own life the moment my brother and I were born. She was an incredibly devoted and loving mother, was very kind to us, but when we were born she stopped having friends, did not work, and was home every single day from when I was born to when I moved out in my early 20s. She was very easy to upset, because she had no other source of self-esteem, and any time I screwed up, and I screwed up a lot, it was as if I had levied a very personal attack against her. In the last 5 years or so before I left, I don't think we had a single conversation that didn't drive her to tears, and I promise I wasn't that bad. I constantly felt cornered and stressed and fell into depression as a defense mechanism, and she took my resulting lack of performance very personally, creating a very treacherous cycle that was only broken when I enlisted and finally got away. To this day I often feel like I'm a bad person who failed to live up to her love. Holy it's like I wrote this. Sorry to hear you're going through the same thing. I started seeing a counselor and she really helped me to process the issues I have because of my enmeshed family. Not stopping when your child says stop. Whether it's teasing, or tickling, or resting. Kids who have parents that don't respect their boundaries always seem to end up being the biggest dongs and bullies, because they've learned they don't have to respect other people's feelings. My dad would squeeze my knee to tickle me, but it would quickly turn painful and he wouldn't stop until I cried. I would beg him to stop, but he wouldn't until it got to that point. That's, not tickling. Never telling your child that you were wrong and that you're sorry. Just never once occurred. My father never once said I'm sorry to me. He was human. There were plenty of times he should have. My kids have heard from me plenty. Once my brother was sent to his room by my dad after they got into an argument about something stupid. I used Google to prove my brother right and we both were grounded for being disrespectful. Until he found out we were actually right, he never ungrounded us until the week was over and only told me he was wrong. Moral of the story: being right is disrespectful. I remember several occasions when my father would accuse me of doing something I shouldn't have, and a couple of times I was legitimately innocent, and I would say I didn't do it or some such thing. He'd counter with, "Are you calling me a liar?" And I was pretty much freaked after that. There was no way I was going to get out of whatever punishment was heading my way. Dad was always right, even when he wasn't. I spent 3 days being berated by my father, called pissant, liar, thief. This was over a cigarette in a tube that got stolen from his office. I did smoke at the time, but I did have a job and actually didn't need to steal smokes. Anyways, after 3 days of the Gestapo treatment, my brother admitted he took it. I didn't hear one word of apology from him. I resent him 25 years later. Not following through with your promises. If you told your child you were buying ice cream tomorrow in the hopes that they'd forget, and the next day when they ask you tell them no, they'll see you as unreliable. Ice cream is just the first thing that came to my mind. I'm sure someone else can explain better what I'm trying to say here without sounding so ridiculous. I taught my children at very young ages that outside of extreme circumstances, failing to keep a promise made is the same as telling a lie. Therefore, I won't make promises to them that I am not absolutely certain I can keep. They learned early in life that I take my promises very seriously and will go to great lengths to honor them. We have hit very hard times recently and I have had to delay delivery on some promises, which breaks my heart. But they know that I will fulfill those promises eventually and are much more empathetic and understanding than their peers have been in similar situations. Mine is an extreme case, but my mum left me when I was around 3 and started a new family shortly after. My entire childhood was filled with "I'll do XYZ" and she never would. She was most famous for "I'll pick you up tomorrow" or "I'll be there in X minutes" and just never show. She did this on my 5th birthday. I remember it so vividly. My dad got me up before dark. He got me all dressed, did my hair and took cute pictures with a little mermaid doll she had brought by a few days earlier. I was so excited. Then I went and sat on the front steps as the sun was coming up. I sat there all day long. I didn't want to move, because I didn't want to miss her coming down the long driveway. Finally my dad's girlfriend told me it was nap time. 2 p.m. I said I couldn't take a nap BC mum might come while I'm sleeping. The way she told me, honey, I'm sorry, but I don't think she's coming today, just broke me. I still went and sat back on those steps. She never came. I still trust no one. I'll never forget that day. I worry I'll never be right after years of her doing things like that. It was like a moment ingrained in my head as when my heart broke and was never the same. Always do your best to do what you say for your kids. I'm so sorry that you have these memories and this heartbreak. There are people out there that will treat you with the respect you deserve. And remember that you need to be one of those people too. Using them as props for jokes in public. Glad you got a kick out of it, Dad. My dad challenged me to a drinking contest in front of his friends when I was 16. I'm a tiny petite girl, and, because I always wanted to impress him, make him proud, I agreed. He made me drink jajabums until I threw up and took a photo of my face in the bowl and texted it to all of his mates. They were also my work colleagues at the time. Oh, and the first time he ever introduced me to alcohol at 14 years of age, he made me do shots of Sambuca shot for shot with him. For some quality time with Dad. Mum had to take me to the bathroom to be sick and put me to bed. Well, realistically, it'd be a helicopter parent. You always want to look out for your kid, right? Make sure they're not doing things they're supposed to do. Walk in without knocking. It ruins a relationship with a kid, because even though you have a sense of privacy, the kid doesn't and will always paranoid of anyone entering their room without warning. It ruins a kid. Would my mum let me do this? Is she okay with it? My parents were helicopter parents. I was not allowed to lock my bedroom door. My mum listened in on my phone calls. This was in landline phone days, and went through my personal belongings when I wasn't home, including reading the notes that friends and I passed in school. I wasn't allowed to talk to boys or date. I'm female. Doing this only prevents your children from learning how to form healthy relationships. You should teach your children how to do things, such as date, in a safe and responsible manner, rather than ban it. Never saying sorry to your kids. My mum only just recently started telling me sorry when she gets worked up. It's built up such a resentment for her over the years, and I also have trouble saying sorry myself because of it. Tell your kids sorry, especially if you overreact to something they did. This is my mum too. Sometimes it feels like she would rather jump off a cliff before admitting she was wrong and apologize. My dad would apologize when he yelled at me, as a kid, and it'd always make me understand why he did it. It made me feel bad too, that he got so upset that it made him feel itty. I'm sort of glad that my mum isn't the only one who acts like this. She's actually working on that issue, since me and my siblings are older now and can call her out on it without many consequences. It just sucks, because she only started working on it once I left for college. I wish she had told me sorry once when I was younger. My parents refused to apologize to me as apparently it's bad for saving face. I never thought about how this affected my own personality until now. I hate apologizing myself. It takes a lot of effort for me to admit I'm wrong and apologize, but I do it and I feel angry while saying it. This really fricks people up. Mocking them. Laughing at them. Adults do it to each other all the time, but kids who haven't been immersed in the background cruelty of our culture for years don't understand that it's just the language of the land, and not that they themselves are particularly unworthy of respect. I got laughed at and mocked a few times as a kid and that it hurts a lot. There was one time I was trying to help a friend at their birthday by taking their presents to them. But all the adults and my parents thought I was being selfish and wanted them for myself and joked and laughed at me and just ignored me explaining myself and carried on. I think that hurt my self-esteem a lot in the long run. Being mocked for wanting to help people, an instant classic. Not creating a safe space for your kids to tell their secrets and make mistakes. When I was younger, I excitedly confided in my mum about my first boyfriend. But, instead of calmly talking me through this, she immediately brought my dad in the conversation and they both yelled at me and forced me to break up with him. My parents sat me down at the kitchen table and forced me to write a letter to my boyfriend and tell him that I didn't want to see him anymore. I cried the entire time. After I was done, they posted pictures of the letter all over Facebook and acted like it was so cute. I feel like most of these responses fall under seemingly harmful. A seemingly harmless mistake is rewarding your child with something when they do something they already enjoy. Take, for example, reading. If a child just enjoys reading, let the child read without giving any reward. Once you start rewarding the child for that act, their intrinsic motivation gets replaced. It's called the overjustification effect. I was a kid who loved to read. Still do. And whenever we participated in a program that rewarded reading hours, like the library summer program where you got raffle tickets and could win stuff like baseball and museum tickets, I felt like the most glorious scammer. Joke's on you, Pizza Hut. I would have done all that reading anyway. Suckers. I still remember that feeling. My 3rd grade class won an award that for some reason was a comically large chocolate bar for having read the most books in a specific time frame. I walked home with a hunk of chocolate the size of my fist. The fools. I would have read that much anyways. Okay Reddit guys, subscribe now, or I will shoot a football through your window.